This week he was at least ready to accept that he's been in the wrong.
Well, I've made mistakes in life, and I'm a normal person. And the day, I've done things that I should have done, and now I've paid the price for it. I've all the court cases and everything's gone now, it's finished, and now I can concentrate on my sport. I was 20 at that time when all that stuff happened, and now it's all finished, and I'm not going to make the same mistakes again. I've always said, and I'm always going to say I'm sorry for what happened, and all my fans out there, I've got young fans who look up to me, and I don't want them to see all this stuff and to copy what I do. This is bad, this is what I done, I admit it's bad, but what can you do? It's a learning curve. I was young, and I'm not going to make them mistakes again.
Do you think that because of all the attention that's been focused on you since the Olympic Games nearly 4 years ago now, that you couldn't help but act like you're spoiled?
No, not at all. Not at all. I still do things normal. Like I don't go out partying and stuff like that. I'm still a normal lad. It's not gone to my head, and I don't think it'll ever get to my head. Boxing's a tough sport, which you'll never let it get to your head. It's just one of them sports. I'm just a normal lad, just like probably Ricky Hatton is, and anyone else is.
But we have seen with boxers and other high-profile entertainers in the past, Amir, that without even knowing it, you start to believe that you're above the law.
Oh no, not at all. No, not at all. I don't believe that. I know what I did was wrong. Look, we can't do things like what I did. Like the speeding thing. I was well. They said I was doing 140 miles per hour, but look, I told the truth. I was going about 75 miles per hour. I was going over the speed limit, which on the motorway, which was 70. I went over 5 miles per hour, and to go up to 140, I don't know where they got that from, but that's what I got done for. I got done for going over the speed limit, which was 70. I was going 75, and I know I'm like a role model to these people. People look up to me, and they're going to think, look, what's Amir Khan doing? And the thing I want to say to him is, look, I know what mistakes I've made, and I'm not going to make them mistakes again.
You were telling me after your fight against Willie Limond in July of last year, which was the fight in which you got knocked down but came back to win, a big scare, could have been your first defeat as a professional, that you had to reassess what you were doing outside the ring. That was 6 months ago. What's been happening in your life? What changes have you made?
Yeah, big changes, taking this sport, boxing, more seriously, acting like a professional in every way, eating, training, the way I act outside the ring, the way I act in the gym, and the way since I've been doing that, in the last 3 fights since the Willie Limond fight, I've been so sharp and strong, and I've been like a different fighter, and it's paying off, so I know the things I'm doing now are the right things.
Do you think that as you look back over your professional career, maybe you've been too obsessed with the notion of becoming Britain's youngest world champion?
I think it's good to be ambitious, I want to be the youngest world champion in Britain. And now this lightweight division is very hard compared to the division, the times when Nassim Ahmed and them guys were in it. It's a lot tougher now. All the Americans have just taken over, but now it's my turn to come and take them belts. And I'm not patient. I just want to go in there and win them.
But the deadline, if you want to beat Nassim Hamed's record, is around about June of this year. Is it still realistic? I mean, Frank Warren, your promoter's talking about at least 6 or 7 more fights.
Frank Warren says 6 and 7 fights. I will be a world champion. And I've said, 4 fights definitely I will be a world champion in them fights.
So that will take us beyond June, Amir, won't it?
Well,
and therefore you'll have lost the chance to claim the record.
Well, you never know. I think we can just squeeze one more fight in just before. We have to take these fights step at a time. Now it's getting tough for me now. It's WBO ranking number 2. I'm fighting next, and if I can get him out of the way, why can't I fight the number 1 then? And we can have that fight probably before June, and we can do that. So we just have to wait and see, And maybe my next fight, after this fight, it might be a world title fight. You just don't know.
Well, that's Amir Khan. You worried about what you're hearing at all?
No, I'm not necessarily worried, but there's been some shenanigans this week. Mike knows far more about it than me with regard to Amir's potential fight for the British title. The purse bids were on Wednesday. Amir withdrew himself from the purse bids because Amir and his promoter Frank Warren believed that the champion Jonathan Traxton was demanding, asking for too much money for the fight. So they'd gone off to fight Martin Christensen, a guy with an extremely decent looking record on paper. But like most guys from the Scandinavian countries who sell tickets and are popular, none of their records stand too much scrutiny. And that's the boxing way. It's not a criticism of Christensen. That's the way they do business in the 3 or 4 Scandinavian countries that have boxing.
And just to put a bit of flesh on the bone, you were talking there about John Thaxton, the British champion. Again, Mark, this was one of the fights in all the lists that were drawn up over Christmas time of the fights we want to see in 2008. Amir Khan against John Thaxton for the British title was another one of those. And just to explain some of the background to it, there was a deadline this week, Wednesday of this week, for purse bids. And for those who don't follow boxing too closely, purse bids, that situation comes around when the two sides can't agree on how much to pay the fighters and various other conditions within the fight. In that case then, the two sides have to submit sealed bids to the British Boxing Board of Control to be opened at an appointed date and time. That appointed date and time came around on Wednesday of this week. Khan's team pulled out on the eve of that, so the purse bids became obsolete, redundant, whatever you want to say. Now, Mick Hennessy, who is John Thaxton's exclusive promoter, has told me today that he has sent an improved offer to Khan's team of £400,000 for Khan to box against Thaxton. Frank Warren has told me that he has sent an offer to Thaxton of £100,000 for his side of the fight, although Mick Hennessy tells me that as Thaxton's exclusive promoter, he hasn't received any formal offer. Another issue here is that Warren is contracted, as far as Amir Khan is concerned, to ITV, whereas Mick Hennessy has a contract with Sky. So this fight, as we speak now, is as far away as it ever was.
I mean, I'm not saying it's Hay Macronelli under any circumstances, but you know what? It's a damn good second at the moment. I mean, if you mix and match any fights out there in Britain, Mike, it's about as good as it gets. I like it more than, say, Witter and Hatton. It's a much better looking fight than that. I think it's going to be a fantastic test for Amir Khan. I think it's a fight that Amir Khan, with his speed, provided he doesn't get clipped on the chin in the opening round, can win. And it's a fight. I think Amir Khan needed to win the British title. I think he needed to go down a traditional route. He was a great amateur. He went to the Olympics. He's moved through as the people's fighter. Well, this was the chance, in my opinion, and I'm not a multi-millionaire promoter, to become the people's champion.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you're making there. Frank Warren's... there's some talk there. I mean, he knows what he wants to do with Amir Khan. Is he having to sort of hold his young man back?
Oh, he's been struggling to hold Amir Khan back probably for about 3 years since they first turned pro. And that's understandable. Amir Khan never uttered any of the stupid comments that Audley Harrison made before he boxed, i.e. I could win the British title tomorrow. Amir Khan never said that. But Amir Khan, he's 21. He's just 21. He wants to go. He wants the British title, the Commonwealth title. He wants the world title. He wants to just keep on going. And Frank has to hold him back because there are certain champions out there, not necessarily at world level, but certainly at Commonwealth and British level, that Amir Khan could beat and could box, no problem. But there's also some champions out there that you wouldn't put this Amir Khan with. You might not even put next year's Amir Khan with, under any circumstances. So it all needs to be sort of slightly qualified. And the terrible, sorry for dragging on a bit here, Mike, I know I am, but the one thing with Amir Khan is that the Khan camp does have a bit of a persecution complex, and the bottom line is people expect a lot. When you're as high profile as Amir Khan, people expect things, and I think people will expect on black and white, well, why isn't he boxing the British champion? Why is he boxing this guy Martin Christensen, who's managed to get three draws in his home country, which means he's been beaten out of sight 3 times and got the draws? I mean, let's talk truthful here. You're allowed to tell the truth sometimes when you talk about boxing, not often, once a year. Once a year, January 10th every year, tell the truth. It's Tell the Truth Boxing Day. And let's not mince our words. Okay, this guy's he looks great on paper, and Amir will do a fantastic job on him, and he's managed to get up the WBO rankings. But also, Mark, and I'm just going to carry on in my last 10 seconds. I also exposed about 8 years ago a dead opponent who was once on a short list for Joe Kawasaki, who died a year later, who once he was buried climbed from 8 to 6 in the WBO rankings. That's famous. I nearly got an award for that in Puerto Rico.
Wasn't there also a case where the same fighter who changed his name was in the same top 10?
Absolutely.
Twice in the top 10.
Nearly boxed himself. Apparently had a few quid on himself to win.
Oh, that's Steve Bunce. Only could be Steve Bunce, couldn't he, along with Mike Costello. 3 true British